Hey guys, here's the check your understanding from the lesson. Okay, so we took notes on these. And this document is a little bit different, but I think you might have noticed that I came through here and like scribbled out these numbers, but then that made it more complicated because that's really rare. Normally you're not going to see these little like sub numbers underneath there. But you notice they kind of make sense because we had two A's. So anyway, here we use some kind of method to measure. I think the most popular one was maybe the ruler on the bottom of the protractor. Some students used the strip of paper. Okay, any of these methods would be fine. And other kids traced it and then moved it around and compared. Okay. Then for the angles, what else did I want to mention? We wanted to talk about like notation. So I was okay if congruent just means equal length. Okay. The same measurement. Okay. And we learned about this symbol. So I think everybody should kind of have gotten that out of the lesson. And, depending on which class, I think I have different worksheets on here. But just to use one for an example, it looks like this one and this one are matching. So if I kind of cross out these little silly subscripts that they put on here, I don't like that they did that because that's really uncommon. Euclid would say to show that these are equal, they'd say CD is congruent to EF. He could also decided to list the EF first and then CD second. They're equal. Okay. Now to help me remember that I'm talking about a line segment, I put this little mark on top of it. Okay. So this is how Euclid would show it. You could have showed it anyway. You could use highlighters like I've just done. That would be another way. So let me name, looks like a few, it looks like these two little ones are the same length and these medium lengths are the same, okay? So that's a basic idea here. Nothing more, nothing less, just kind of getting that idea. Now here, most students used a protractor, and we learned a little bit about how to use that. Other students just use the tracing paper. Okay, I think that's probably the easiest and the fastest. So if we did that, again, it doesn't matter. You could have used highlighters if you had those in your backpack. It looks like both of these angles are 180. So, however you showed it is fine, but we also talked about how Euclid would show it. He would show it, angle B is congruent to angle L. You could also say, why is B equal to L? Well, if we measured them with a protractor, they're both equal to 180. Okay, so that's how he would list it. Now let's look at a couple other ones. Again, we don't need to probably do all of them, but what do we got here? Yeah, angle J looks awfully close to angle A. Okay, and they both look about 90. So if you measured them, and you might not be able to measure them perfectly, but angle J and angle A are congruent because I think they both measure 90. Okay, now you can show it just like this. This would be a true statement, or this would be a true statement. And that's how Euclid would label it. All right, last one. We did this in class. There's a lot on here. Again, it doesn't really matter. This is just to kind of get your brain thinking. But these two lengths looked pretty close. And these two lengths look close, right? And these two lengths look close. I think a lot of students got those. So there's a lot of stuff to mention on here. I think I could say these two lengths look close, right? We also might notice angles. Like, so this angle and this angle look the same. I think a lot of students notice these right angles look the same. So we could have listed that a lot of ways. Like it looks like angle A is congruent to angle D, which is congruent to angle B, and congruent to angle C. Those are some ways we could have listed that. We also noticed maybe these two were congruent. Angle I and L. What else? Many students noticed these two angles looked the same. But when we used angle E, is congruent to angle F, there's more than one angle happening there. So just those labels are kind of not good enough, okay? So Euclid did this. Let me see if I can pick a different color highlighter. Blue, okay. Euclid said, okay, to make sure you know the angle, he used 3 letters. So if we know that an angle can continue forever, then angle E could be called angle AEF. And then angle F could be named, I got to keep going until I find a point that's measured, EFC. EFC. Notice that angle E is still in the middle of my list. I just used 3 capital letters to name an angle, and this helps me know I'm talking about this angle, not this angle. Both of those angles are happening at F. Okay, so now for a check our understanding. Explain how you know they're congruent. Well, that's going to be your reason, okay? So your explanation, mine is I used patty paper, also known as tracing paper. To compare. All right. You could have also used, I use patty paper for everything. You could have used the other items. So go ahead and list whatever you used. Doesn't matter, right? The other ones were fine. Okay, so how we're thinking, how can I give you a quiz on this? It would take me a long time because there's a lot of ways kids could show it. And so that the way will be, I'm going to have check all that are true. Okay, so I'm going to list some that are the same. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say CZ is congruent to DZ. Well, when I look at that, it's like CZ is really long, right? And let me put my lines up top there, right, to just make it clear. And then ZD is really short, so I'm not going to, if it says check all that are true, I'm not going to check it, right? One that would be true is it definitely looks like this one and this one are congruent. So I'm going to list CZ is congruent, though, to CY. Okay? One that I wouldn't check is these two, right? These are one's long, one's short. So if there was a box on the quiz that listed that, I'm not going to check that box. Okay? So now that you know that, let me list some other ones that could be correct. So I see here that AW looks to be the same length as AX, right? BY is the same length as DZ. We notice these lengths look the same, right? And we confirm that with our patty paper. What else? Any other lengths the same? I think we're pretty good. And again, maybe I didn't get all of them, but notice for the quiz, I would need to probably list these out. I can't have you guys list them out because it's just going to be too hard for me to grade. I want to be able to grade it and give you some feedback. Okay, so I compared side lengths. Now, what would be my angles? I still can use patty paper for that. So I use patty paper and tracing paper to compare line segments and angles. Okay, so let's compare some angles. It definitely, when I got my patty paper out, appeared as though these angles were the same. So that would be, yep, angle A is congruent to angle C. And I noticed that D and B were congruent. So if that was on the quiz, I'd say, yep, angle D is congruent to angle B. Again, I'm not going to get them all, but it's very obvious I wouldn't check the angle B, which is obtuse, to be equal to angle C, which is acute, less than 90. I'm not going to check that one. So this would be what the quiz would be like, and that's next class. So let me list some other ones you might be wondering, ooh, did she get mine? Okay, so with some other angles, I might have to use 3 letters to compare. So, and I see this angle W and this angle X, but there's more than one angle at W. So I'm going to need to use the 3 letters AWX and, right, and then this other angle here, the 3 letters AXW. That helps me say that this angle at W, see how it lands in the middle, is equal to this angle at X. And I'm more specific. I'm also noticing these 2 angles look equal to each other. So I'm going to use the same technique. I'll call it CZY. CZY is congruent to this angle here, ZYC. All right. There you have it, guys. I probably left some out. Actually, I know I left some out. This bigger angle here, I didn't mention. Like this angle and this angle, those would be equal. This big angle here, that would be equal. So I didn't list all the answers, but I definitely listed quite a few. Nice work, guys. See you next time.